When you're on the field, sometimes the crowd is cheering for you, sometimes the crowd is booing the hell out of you. If you're willing to hear that, you're not gonna be able to play the game. For all of you, whatever mission you're on, a parent, an executive, building a business, these are the two most important fingers in the world. Most people use these fingers to point and blame everybody else. I use these two fingers to stick them directly in my ears so I can't hear the outside, so I can focus on my shit. Attention is the number one asset. The number one thing that I tried to buy from 2017 to 2020 that I got outbid on and regret every day for folding and wish I went to the max was Tupac's prison license.
I remember that.
I famously passed on Uber early and missed out on $400 million. I did a lot of things that didn't work out. I believe me not buying that Tupac prison pass license will be one of my biggest regrets. For me as an operator, and there's a lot of business people sitting around here, I think everybody knows the first time you do something, it is always the hardest time. So for this to be year one, for them to pull it off, I think even the most cynical or hater people that want to find things that are wrong instead of finding things that are right, probably understands like this is an incredible execution for year one, and I'm sure all of us are hopeful and optimistic that next year becomes bigger, better, and better. But yeah, I mean, I think we have so many great things like the National, we have other great things like All-Star weekends in sports, but they're hard to get to, they're infrequent. And something like this, I think, hopefully inspires other entities to do this. I think as sports fans, which I'm gonna assume a lot of us are, we're hungry for more stuff. And so when the community can get together, and I think by far the thing that stands out for me the most is that Michael Rubin and Fanatics has the leverage to get the leagues to come and show up proper. Like, there's not a lot of events where we can run the 40-yard dash or come out to the WWF theme. Like,
That's so cool.
So I think for year one, yes. Skee, now my question for you. Actually, let's hear it for DJ Skee, the legend. No, that's some bullshit in the morning. He's a Vikings fan, bro. I need to hear it loud from you. Let's hear it for Skee, the legend. Speaking of the hobby or sports, early on when I got excited that I thought it was coming back in 2017, 18 and started to get loud, you were one of the first people that hit me up and said, hey, like this, I see it too, or is this happening? Like, you were excited. What has happened, from your perspective, what has happened in the last 7 years about this popping off?
I mean, a lot of it is what we say, right? Like modernizing it, bringing it to a new generation, and bringing it up to a level that it deserves to be on, right? Like, for so long, it was so antiquated. It felt like not much had changed since the 90s. The brands, the experiences around it. Then you started seeing brands like Fanatics get in and really invest in bringing pop culture, right? It's like the fact that you have some of the biggest hip-hop stars in the world walking around this, doing their own collabs. The fact that you have these type of experiences that bringing a whole new generation, right? And it's not just a card show with the booths and tables. So you have that over there, and it's awesome.
Let me just say this, I'm sorry to interrupt. I went to the National in 2018 in Cleveland, and the first thing that came out of my mouth is, where's the kids?
Yes.
Just even the amount of kids that are now in the hot. There was like I was a 14-year-old that was slinging the cards in the 90s. I thought that's what I was gonna see in Cleveland. There was like 3 dozen. Now, there's thousands of kids. I mean, these kids came up to me, he's like, yo, this kid's 14, he's making 20K. I mean, like, that is like, it's unbelievable, that shift alone.
100%, and like, seeing people come in that aren't necessarily card fans. I brought a friend yesterday who's a diehard sports fan, doesn't know anything about cards. He walked in and he's attracted by all the activations, right? Like the WWE thing is one of the coolest activations I've seen in a long time.
Ever.
And then he came in and started like buying cards. He actually bought a pack of VeeFriends Volume 2. So I walked over there and it's like, what is this? What's going on? Oh wow, these are worth that much. What's the case? What's the grading, right? Like, one challenge we have as a hobby is how difficult the onboarding is, right? This is like, why is this one Soto card $20 and this one $20,000? So I think like that independent grading, all those things. So bringing people in is so important. And you see so many kids walking around, and I think that's going to be so good. And why we need things like this. It's not just about appealing to the collectors that exists today. It's about onboarding the new generation. We all want.
It's funny you say that. This may land for a lot of you in the audience. I started playing fantasy baseball in 1992. And that was on some nerd shit. Like people were like, this is stupid. I got made fun of by my homies in high school. And then you go 20 years later and people live for fantasy football, even basketball now, which everyone said would never happen because it was complicated. For me, that's what's happening with trading cards. I think 6 years ago, when I was starting to make all the content, I had a lot of which is why I'm thrilled to share the stage, you saw it and were excited, but 90% of my friends were like, this is stupid. Are you okay? Are you having a midlife crisis? Like, what's happening? And similar to gambling, which is obviously legalized and now people do it, similar to fantasy, to your point, for a lot of people here that are in the hobby, I think we're early. I think when you think about 5 to 15 years from now, you will have many more of what you just said. I think the National is an iconic trading card event. But when I think about Fanatics Fest, the fact that it's bringing so many sports fans who then trickle into the hobby, I think this will be, over time, one of the most significant onboarding platforms for the hobby. And I think that's a great thing. And I really do think trading cards sits with fantasy and with gambling as a higher percentage of sport fans are doing it.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is going back to when we first started talking.
Let's switch seats too while you're doing this.
Great. So what's interesting is if you look at the company, make some noise for GaryVee. You can't do it. We can do it. Make some loud noise for the legend GaryVee.
Jets fans.
When I look around, right, the companies that are around today that are some of the biggest didn't exist in 2018. Fanatics Collectibles didn't exist. Rating platforms like Whatnot didn't exist. Shops like Bigger Trading, my favorite one here in New York, didn't exist. Even when you look at brands like Arena Club, which have done such a good job of onboarding a new type of collector with all the different solutions, rating, all these things, didn't exist. We see all these things is out there. Where do you see the future going kind of next in the hobby? What else do we need to do?
Well, I think for me, like again, talking about these kids, that was 14-year-old me, but doing trading cards or sports collectibles professionally at the highest levels was not conceivable. So I think you're indoctrinating so many young, real entrepreneurs, and for them, they don't think that they need to go to Wall Street or they need to go into a corporation. They're gonna say, like, this is what I'm gonna do for a living. And I don't think that means that they're just gonna be dealers. They're gonna invent the AI grading company. They're gonna invent the new, look what I did. I grew up with this stuff and I invented VeeFriends to go along with my collecting. So, I think you're gonna continue to see more and more companies grow. I have to get right into actual sports for a minute. I see a Vikings fan sitting there. I see my fellow Jets fans sitting there. I gotta go to this question. Obviously, when you draft a quarterback, Skee is a huge Vikings fan. When you draft a quarterback early in the first round, you have all these dreams and excitement. Obviously, it's devastating, and it happens so infrequently when the kid gets hurt in preseasons, out for the year. I, on the other hand, am pretty convinced that Sam Darnold is going to step in now and be remarkable, and it's going to frustrate us diehard Jet fans. What's your observation for the Vikings' upcoming season, and what's your prediction for Sam's season?
Great question. I think Sam, even talking to them before JJ's injury, right, they were excited about him. Like, he doesn't have the right situation. In football, more than any other sport, it's about system, it's about coaching, it's about the people around you. You can be the best quarterback. If you're running a different system and you're, a run-first quarterback that will be in the pocket, you're not going to work no matter how great it is. So they feel really good. He's young, he has the opportunity, he's had the experience. So, they were saying this before for the injury. Like, I was like, JJ should probably sit for a year.
Red shirt of you.
Right? Like,
I think people forget that Mahomes sat for a year, right? Like, when you look at the NFL, like a lot of, obviously off of Stroud's season last year, you can get very confused. But like, I see a Josh Allen jersey there. Like, until that third season, it was like touch and go. Obviously, the Jets have had massive headaches trying to find their guy. And I think when you look around the league and in history, players that were able to sit, right? Bradshaw sat for multiple years. I think it's underestimated how many. I mean, Brady didn't start his first. Obviously, he was a 6th-round pick. That's a whole different game. But like, some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, now with the way the NFL is, where the way the contract works, they get them out there because once they become free agents, so things have changed. But yeah, I mean, I think for JJ to watch for a year, even hurt, I think could have been a good thing.
It could be a strange way, like a blessing in disguise, where now he doesn't have the pressure, where his fans are already like, when is he starting? Oh my God. If he's starting this year, that means a lot went wrong, right? I mean, I'd love for him to be incredible, but we'll see. It'll be fun. I mean, Chats, how are you feeling this year?
Well, I feel like we're definitely going to win our game in London this year against the Vikings.
Yes.
I'll be there. Are you going to go?
Maybe we'll see.
Can I convince you to go? It's going to be a lot. You can't go. By the way, kids, let me teach you something. Maybe is always no.
See, that's probably those.
Maybe is always no.
You know,
right? Maybe is always fucking no. Let me preface this. I want everyone to understand what kind of Jets fan I am. I have not missed a single snap in real time, no DVR. I have not missed a single snap of a New York Jets game since 1982. I am a full diehard.
What's the biggest thing you've turned down? I'm sure there was some
weddings of like decent friends, funerals of acquaintances. Just to put it into context, I once had power outage and had a rundown state. Like, I've done a lot of crazy things to make sure I haven't missed a snap. I am normally pessimistic. I'm an optimistic person in real life. The one bizarro version of me that's different is Jets Gary. I always think it's gonna be bad. The second Aaron Rodgers fell to the ground last year, I immediately went to, he's out for the year. It's always
I remember the text.
Out for the year. Like, I'm always negative. I really think that they're gonna be a very good team this year. Obviously they have to, the problem with the NFL, like, I'm a diehard Knicks fan. The Knicks got banged up last year and still could have a very good year. The NFL is different. The Bills have already lost Milano. Like, people, JJ, like, it's the only sport that you can't be calm about. Like, we could be 11-0 and then Sauce Gardner's out for the year and our defense is completely different. So if they stay fairly healthy, they are deeper than they've been historically. It's a strong roster besides the top line. But just to remind everybody, the New York Jets have the longest drought of not making the playoffs in all 4 major North American sports. It hurts. We're sad. I do think this is the year that we snap the drought. I don't know if we can get to the ultimate level, but I think it's a playoff team and I'm excited about it.
Please don't talk about droughts when we're talking Minnesota sports. It's championships. Last Minnesota championship.
No, it's been a while. How old were you in that year? That was, what, the Twins?
Yeah, 7.
You remember?
7. That's what got me into sports, right? That's what started me in the hobby, right? Like, after the season, I was like, how do I still had all this adrenaline for the baseball season. I was like, how do I stay connected? And that's what really looped me in. What was it when you were a kid? What was your first card memory?
I have a very weird trading card first memory. I had a friend who used to come for the summer. I didn't know what divorced parents were. I was always confused why he was only there for the summer. His name was Eric Conrad, and he was obsessed with building card houses. You know, like playing cards and like building little card houses. People used to do that. And one day I came over and he brought out some baseball cards to make the little card houses out of, not just playing cards. And I couldn't believe that Don Mattingly, who was my hero, I was a huge Yankees fan growing up, that there was a card of Don Mattingly. Immediately I ran to something called Krauser's. I don't know if anybody knows that in the Jersey area. It was like our 7-Eleven of Northern Jersey. I went to Krauser's, bought a pack of 84 Fleer, and it changed my whole life. And over the next 12 years of my life, it was the most important thing to me, trading cards. It was such a big deal. I went from that to, by the time I was in 7th and 8th grade, doing card shows in the malls of New Jersey. And so my earliest memory was not even about cards, it was about building little card houses, and that switched it for me. How about for you?
For me, yeah, it was just after the 91 Twins, and I started going after every Kirby bucket, every Twins player, right? Like, it was collecting
Kent Herbeck,
and then like, as the years went on, like the 90s were the glory era. Like, my favorite set, I just did an interview talking about is like, comments like 94 Upper Deck baseball. me, and the electric diamond foil parallels are so cool. My favorite card I have, we bought from the $1 million cards, is an $800 King Griffey Jr. electric diamond PSA 10 parallel, right? Like, tough to find in that great and good condition, but not extremely valuable. It's just, those cards look so cool, and those 90s inserts I still love. I was walking around at all the tables yesterday, looking at all the Griffey, the Jordan inserts, and like that was my era. Just seeing those cool designs was so amazing.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's funny, the 90s, one of my favorite things about the hobby, and this is like a really interesting thing for anyone who's in it or considering to get in it, is what's expensive and valuable today is not guaranteed to be that tomorrow. People, I think, understand that. They're scared to buy something that will go down. I think the biggest thing that's not talked about yet is what's underpriced today can be valuable tomorrow. Those 90 inserts, nobody cared. Nobody cared. What I'm very into, vintage basketball. Vintage basketball, like vintage baseball has always held the heart of this industry, but vintage basketball, even into the late 2017, 18, 19, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, not a lot of demand, but because there's so few of them, just a little demand creates the curve. For a lot of people, look, my biggest pet peeve right now with the hobby is it's expensive. It's hard for, you know, like an average kid. If you're a top 1% wealthy kid, fine. But like for an average kid, I saw a video yesterday that there's a score pack at Walmart right now that's like $23 for 100 cards, and I was ecstatic. I read all the comments and everyone's like, this product's shit and cheap, and it's such a wrong take. There's so many people in this country, I mean, I don't have to talk about the state of the economy and inflation. For a lot of kids, $20 is a lot of money. And so what are you gonna buy? And so I'm happy to see that, and I'm hoping, and my number one combo with Ruben is like, we need less expensive cards. Kids need to be able to get in. Comma, there's some inserts that I'm looking at right now that are visually very attractive, but are common-ish. So they're not very valuable, but my 20-year from now brain is like, you know what? I think people like, I'll tell you the one that's most on my mind. The lottery ticket insert for NBA draft picks, right? It's like a good-looking card. They're not very sought after. It's not in the most expensive packs, but in 20 years, when they've all been rummaged through the commons boxes and are banged up because they're not valuable, the visual of it, and all you need in 20 years is 100 people to all agree that they like it. I mean, and so I think for a lot of people I think this is the single best advice ever. Collect what you want, not what you think is gonna go up. And I think if you collect what you want, if you really stay that course, there's a lot of opportunity, because I think the biggest issue right now in the hobby is that people are gambling, right? They're buying very expensive wax hoping, or they're speculating on every rookie when 90% of them don't pan out.
And I think that's one of the big challenges that I see, right? Like we all saw the market accelerate with COVID, and one of the reasons was, I think a lot of people came in solely looking for money, right? Like they didn't care about putting together a set and collecting. For them, it was like, a lot of people weren't flipping sneakers, they're flipping cards and stuff, which is okay. But then when they step away and find whatever's next with NFTs or whatever it is now, right? Like then a lot of people are left kind of holding the bag, and it looks like the market comes down. We kind of have that cleansing. I feel like we're now like everything's kind of stable.
Oh, I think the market is as stable as like I think it's and I'll tell you why I love it. A lot of people here have seen what's happened the last 7 years, so it's harder for it to be replicated.
Yeah.
Right? So, and it's a strong base. I mean, the hobby, people love to talk about the COVID era as they've got feelings about it. It's the single greatest era that ever happened for the hobby. Look at where it's at right now, and people learned about speculating, so it's only up from here.
Yeah, and I think like to your point, right? Like he's on board a new generation. When I was a kid, I remember 89 Griffey, right? Rookie card. That was the most valuable. That was $110 or something. Like I couldn't afford it. And that's what I dreamed for. Now, like $100, people looking like you have a cheap card.
It's sad.
Outside of that, 1%, and it has to be more than like let's chase this one that's worth $500,000. Like that's not sustainable.
Let me ask you a question, and I think this will be interesting for the crowd. You know this because I think we've talked about it once. My biggest observation is that the next wave is non-sports trading cards. I'm obsessed with fictional characters. I personally am obsessed with fictional characters, but even like rapper trading cards. I mean, obviously what we saw with Travis, obviously I have my own intellectual property with VeeFriends, but me as a collector, I kind of get excited about finding like Popeye the Sailor Man rookie card. I'm being serious now. I know that like people giggle at this, but this is the same way they giggled 8 years ago about trading cards. Like, here's where I'm at. Fred Flintstone is way more famous than 98% of athletes. And I think, obviously you have a huge music background, whether it's actual human beings that are famous or fictional characters. I think that there's a big brewing quiet wave. And I do think Fanatics, if you look at what Michael, when I take a step back and look at what Ruben's doing here, when you're bringing pop culture people like Drewski, when you're bringing people like Travis Scott, when athletes are getting into collecting, like Grant Williams getting addicted after pulling a monster Luka, I think there's a lot to go. What's your take on non-sports trading cards, you personally?
I'm all in. I mean, I'm obviously like music is my foundation, and when I started making cards with Topps, my theme was basically making like my mixtape covers, right? Like it was remixing these classic sports cards, taking Kirby Puckett and mixing it with Prince's Purple Rain, right? Taking somebody like Ronald Acuna and mixing it with the incredible like Outkast ATL one, and then I started actually involving some of the artists, right? Like our friend Dave East, I did a Derek Jeter card, and it's the same time like Wu-Tang Clan, they had the show on Hulu, the season was launching, so we like put him in the background as a hidden Easter egg, and did a launch event, and we could like set this thing off. So I think this whole thing's happening. You see the Travis cards, with me bringing that in. We just did it, the Realist, the big collaboration with Zoom, released the whole card as part of that. People were signing up and bidding on things just to get the cards. They were buying some memorabilia for that. So I think pop culture is.
I think for the parents and grandparents in here, I think what I'm about to say is going to hit. I think if Coco Melon a year or 2 or 3 ago put out trading cards, you would have a lot of 3-4-year-olds starting to collect. I just think it's super obvious.
I mean, for you, you made a bold vision, like launching VeeFriends as a card, and you went all in. I mean, look at the size of your booth and the activation and stuff. What gave you that foresight, wherewithal to be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to set the trend. I mean, you always had that vision, like, how can you actually do it and be successful?
Something a lot of people don't know is this has been on my mind for 20 years. Like different like businesses and things of that nature, and you're always thinking and trying to create and things of that nature. So I'm always hoping and thinking, when I've always wanted to build something meaningful that was bigger than me. As the GaryVee brand started to build, I realized I'm just one dude. I also know that I'm not every single person's here cup of tea. I have a certain personality. It works for a lot of people, but it's not for everybody. But what I have to say is something I want the world to know. Right? I want people to know that you can be a gangster and a killer, but you don't have to compromise being a decent human being while doing it. And I think it's a message that's very confused to people. I think people think you have to compromise your soul for success. And so I always wanted to get that mission across. And the thing I started to learn was when I exploded on TikTok, I got younger and I saw the impact. I saw that if I could get to kids at 12, 13, 14, they were more likely to be impacted than the kids I was getting to on Instagram that were 20, 21, 22. That always me said, if I could get to people at 4, 5, and 6, then we could really do shit. And so Pokemon and Disney and Transformers and My Little Pony and Strawberry Shortcake and all this stuff was always in my head. When the NFT and trading card thing was kind of crossing, I said, you know what? It's time for me to take an at-bat. COVID was happening, I had time.
And you literally went in, and I remember you're like, I'm disappearing for 2 weeks and drawing and making all these things, and then you came out with this insane.
The most fun for me on it really is that the building, right? Like grinding behind the table at VeeFriends today on a Sunday in the summer of where I'm at in my career really speaks to me. Like that to me, like the building is the fun part. I think of it as this. Sometimes I go to the beach and you see kids work on a sandcastle for like 9 hours, and then they just look at each other and they tear it down. And I see all the faces of people around the sandcastle be like, why would you do that? And I always understand those kids because I'm like, it's about the building, not the castle. And for me, VeeFriends is about the building. I don't care if people are pro or con it right now. I'm excited to have the conversation about it in 2047. And to me, it's kind of like being an athlete. When you're on the field, sometimes the crowd is cheering for you, sometimes the crowd is booing the hell out of you. The problem is you can't accept it. You've got to play the next play. I think entrepreneurship now is playing out in public, and everybody's got a comment in the comments, whether pro or con. Literally every post I have, this comment is a goat emoji, the next one's like, fuck you. You know what I mean? And if you're willing to hear that, you're not gonna be able to play the game. For me, I can't hear the negativity, but on the flip side, I also don't hear the accolades. Once you get high on your own supply, you become vulnerable. You become very vulnerable. And so I think for all of you, whatever mission you're on, a parent, an executive, building a business, these are the two most important fingers in the world. Most people use these fingers to point and blame everybody else. I use these two fingers to stick them directly in my ears so I can't hear the outside, so I can focus on my shit.
You've done it, and you're focused in these shows. You love going around and getting your hands dirty. Like you said, you've been successful in a lot of other businesses. You don't need to do this. And I remember people saying, oh, Gary's just going to flip. I'm like, Gary doesn't need to flip cars. He's pumping down the market. Like, he's got a lot of other ways you could do that if you really wanted to. You enjoy walking.
This is
National is your favorite event of the year.
I literally woke up at like 6:30 this morning out of pure excitement that I was gonna be here all day. It allowed me to get a nice workout in. I got a little work done, but like my body, I need sleep. I work like a fucking crazy man, but I still woke up at 6:30 this morning because I knew I was gonna be here because the adrenaline is so high. I'm gonna be sad. I don't know if any of you get way up for things and then when it's over you get have that big crash. I'm gonna be super sad around 4:30 today because I know this weekend's now over and I gotta wait for the next one. And so I love this industry. I love sports. I love my friends that I've met through the years, and I really enjoy meeting new people that have similar interests and ambitions and hopes. And so I'm incredibly happy to be here. And I ask all of you, I'll be at the VeeFriends booth most of the day. Please come and say hi. I'd love to say hello.
What's the best VeeFriends pickup somebody can have in the audience if they want to get in? My friend actually went to his booth, like I said yesterday, bought his first pack of cards. It was VeeFriends Series 2. What's the best quote you can get out of that right now that's still on the market?
Oh, they're one-on-ones. Like I will tell you, for all of you that have not looked into VeeFriends yet, if you open your eBay app right now and type in VeeFriends and go to completed items sold, you will shit your pants. There's such a significant market for it, but it's early. I have 20 years of perfect execution to get halfway to Pokemon. So it's there's a lot of work to be done. On the flip side, it's already happened. Now it's just building on top, but there's one-of-ones in those $30 packs that sell for $5,000, $4,000, $3,000 a piece. It's humbling, and I think different than other startups that have come, with all due respect to MetaZoo or other things that have come along. For me, I know I'm doing this forever and I don't want to sell it. Back to building the sandcastle. I don't want the exit. I need to build this for the rest of my life. That gives me enormous confidence of that every day. Because the issue with building anything is once the person stops caring, it's over. When the founder, some of you have worked for startups, when the founder sells the company to a bigger company, it's over. No matter what they tell you. I have company-wide meetings in my marketing company, VaynerMedia, where I talk in front of all of them and literally tell them, if I ever sell this, I'm gonna have an all-company meeting, and I'm gonna tell you it's gonna be great, and this lady that just bought it, she's amazing, she's the only person I would have sold it to, this is gonna be phenomenal, and I'm gonna say all of that, but I'm telling you, all of you right now, the day after I sell it, quit. That, I don't think I'll ever sell VaynerMedia because it's the foundation of what I do, and I know I'm never gonna sell VeeFriends. I may take it public, but I will never sell it. And so it's what I've wanted to do. I feel like my life has gotten to this point to where I can build this brand, and I'm very fucking focused on it. And so, yeah, I think you could pull a lot of stuff. But like with anything, if like two of you right now are like, wait a minute, I want to start collecting VeeFriends, the core advice is always the same. Before you collect anything, spend hours doing research. Way too many people jump in. The biggest mistake that people make is they jump in and they just start buying stuff. The biggest opportunity for everyone here is education. Do your homework.
It starts slow. I remember when I really got back in the hobby, right? Like there was purchases that I made that like, you're like, oh, you bought that's great advice. This grading company is same as PSA, right? Like, blah, blah, blah. You learn and
you don't know.
Mistakes, so be willing to do that and jump in. What's so interesting is if you look at this next generation out there,
yeah.
You talked about kids. Where do you see the opportunities for them to get in? Because like one of the series that I love is where you would always go to garage sales.
Yes.
Fine. Basically arbitrage. Same thing out here, right? Like there's some groups selling, dollar
box. I'm telling you right now, like again, I grew up so poor. Like I wish I grew up in the dollar box era. Like for anybody here who's really doesn't have a lot of money, which is many people, because it's so expensive, the dollar box is unbelievable. The dollar boxes here, buying for $1 and selling for $7 on eBay, day in and day out, 3, 10, 50, 500 cards over a week, a month, a year. It's also, my favorite thing about telling kids to get into dollar boxes is what they learn. If you learn that because the dollar box is hard work. You gotta sit there and go through everything. You gotta be educated. You can't sit there and look up everything. You gotta put in hours of work. But when you get to that level and you can walk through this place and buy 100 $1 cards, go home, take a photo of those things, put in that grind and get 2,000 out of it, 1,000 out of it, you do that a couple dozen times in a year, all of a sudden you wake up and you got $24,000. And when you're 15, it's really hard to do that. And in other jobs at Target and McDonald's, and so the dollar boxes are huge. We're about to leave. I want to make sure I get this off. Skee, just because you won't do it if I don't ask it, so I want to put you on. What do you want all these people to know about? What are you working on?
Yeah.
What's exciting to you?
Sure.
What are you doing?
For me, I launched a company, The Realist. We believe that
say it slow, I want to make sure.
TheRealist.com. So we basically are going to artists and taking things like Snoop Dogg. We infamously just sold his smoked roach for fun. Like literally a roach aggressive for $5,000, right? People are like, that's crazy. When you think of Snoop, it's not an icon. What's the first thing you think of? Smoking weed.
100%.
And like that is going to be a piece that I believe is worth $100K after it passed away, right? Like,
yep.
Huge thing. So we think that there's just so much opportunity that really starts with authentication. We've taken some of the things that, most Major League Baseball's pioneered and witness-based authentication and built on that to do it for other sports. So they've gone all in on it, right? Like it comes from this journey of starting in collectibles and cards and seeing where like the blank space was.
Yes.
So for me, it was diving in and doing authentication at the highest level with the biggest partners. We're doing, Usher's tour now, 60 days, authenticating set lists, signed posters every single night.
Cool.
He just did, Super Bowl halftime show, one of the biggest tours of the fall, and now his fans have never had a way other than buying merch to connect with.
On this note, the number one thing that I tried to buy from 2017 to 2020 that I got outbid on and regret every day for folding and wish I went to the max was in 2019 or 20, Heritage was selling Tupac's prison license.
I remember that.
It was, you remember? I came in second, and it will go down as one of my, I famously passed on Uber early and missed out on $400 million. I did a lot of things that didn't work out. I believe me not buying that Tupac prison pass license will be one of my biggest regrets. I'm so, like when you were just talking about what you're doing, in my stomach, I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like, I'm so pissed I didn't get that, because I do think, especially in hip hop, those collectibles are gonna really matter in 20, 30, 40 years.
We agree, right? Like the thesis is when you you look at the space, even like at music memorabilia, we think it has tremendous room to grow, but it's mostly rock. There's $1 million
that's right.
rock. We hit the first $1 million hip hop sale, which was the Drake ring, obviously talked about in this Kendrick Drake beef, right? And the Tupac ring that Drake bought from that. And I think that this has room to grow. When you're seeing Snoop, like people are laughing at me, got so much press that clearly used drugs was sold for $5 grand. Even Snoop is like, nobody's gonna buy this. They're crazy. We thought nobody would pay $100 for it. I'm like, that's actually a steal, right? Like some of these, you're gonna be kicking yourself when that sells for $1 million in 20 years.
I'm mainly going to collect Bone Thugs and Harmony memorabilia, so I'm hoping that the market is nice and softened out. Look, I think that it's a real pleasure to share the stage with you. I think that what most people are still missing based on this conversation, fictional trait, Fred Flintstone's rookie card, Snoop's roach. I think, because I just look around at everyone here and everyone's got different interests, different lives, different things that they're excited about. By far, the most obvious thing for me of the last 5 years is that I think we can all agree that music is just like a massive part of society, right? Whatever you like, but it's there. Sports, right? From the Roman Colosseums to where we are now is a massive part of life. Fashion, I think we can all agree fashion is just a real part of life. Food, right? I think if you think about food, it's one of the big genres of life. I believe what we're all living through in this 5-7 year window right now is the beginning of collecting being a massive part of life. And I believe in 30-40 years, there's very few people on earth that are not collecting something, because by nature, humans are hoarders. It's in our DNA, and I think it's switching over pop culturally. So I think for everyone here who's thinking about this, it doesn't have to be trading cards. It doesn't have to be sneakers or watches. It doesn't even have to be some of the stuff we're seeing like music memorabilia. I think this goes way beyond, and I think you should lean into what you love and what you're interested in, because I think you may find that your thing might get hot in 25 years and you were doing it for love, and then maybe it's actually a meaningful investment. I actually think hats. One of the things I'm thinking a lot about right now is hats. I think obviously we see people buy them for fashion reasons, like vintage hats for acting cool in the club because they want the authentic one. I actually think hats has a real shot at being one of the genres that is kind of not obvious right now. And so I'm excited about that. I think it's real. I think it's a joy. It's like watching movies. I think it's a joy when you find something you love that you collect, and I think we'll continue to see that grow.
And that's why, like, when I'm looking at my credential, this event just isn't sports, it's where culture flies. It's a tagline of it. I think that's what's next. Like, the LeBron cards, like, yes, they can continue to grow, blah, 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 but they've already, like, people know what that's like, because we've seen sports cards since, the 20s, in essence, right?
Yeah, but people, well, yes, but right, to your point, but people started collecting them in the 20s, 30s, but people didn't even think of them as value until the late 70s, early 80s. You're talking 79, 80, 81. It's 5 minutes ago in the scheme of things. And so I think what trading cards did will happen. And we've seen things prior. There's not a lot of 90-year-olds sitting around, but if you got a grandpa around, ask them about stamps. Stamps were massive. Ask them about coins. Coins still are massive. So anyway, let's, as we wrap up here, I want to make sure we get a humongous round of applause. Thank you for your time, Skee.
Thank you, Gary. Of course, thank you all. What are you buying? Anything you're looking for? What cards? Now you got the stage.
It's going to be a little bit hard because this is more sportsed out, but I will tell you, at the National, it was looking for Tweety Bird's rookie card. I know this is silly, Cinderella. I mean, I get it, but I'm telling you, it's what I'm hot on. I think the Batman stuff is very obvious. I'll give you one. I don't want to drive up the market on my own self, but it's by far the best example. 1966 Donruss is Marvel's first trading cards. The fact that you could buy Spider-Man and Iron Man's rookie card for nothing in the scheme of things. So superheroes for sure, but then even cartoons and like fictional characters. So I'll go see if anybody's got it. I don't expect it because I think they brought sports here. And then you know, maybe a couple of Garrett Wilson and Brees Halls, just to get hyped for the upcoming season. That's it. So thank you, everybody. Have a great time.